Hey, what's up, everybody? You got myself, Renee, and Blake the Wolf here. We're going to be talking about Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness. I still have the taste of popcorn in my mouth because we literally just saw the movie like an hours apart from each other, right?
Yes, I have a popcorn kernel that fell into my pocket earlier, and I threw it out right before we started recording.
Ah,
It's
I
all
thought you're gonna save.
popcorn.
You're not gonna save it for later, you know?
I had myself some Sour Patch Kids somewhere. Psych, I devoured all of them. It was great.
Nice, nice. Yeah, no, I can't wait to talk about this film because obviously it's a Marvel film, and I know Marvel films these days are the huge mega events at the movie theaters. But at the same time, I also know, Blake, you're not a big comic book fantasy type of guy in general. So, very interested to hear your thoughts about this movie, especially since we had an amazing conversation about The Batman, which is also a comic book slash superhero movie, but in a different vein, right? So, with that being said, Doctor Strange. So it's been 6 years since the first Doctor Strange movie came out. And by the way, if if you're new to this channel and all that stuff like that, and you're wondering who the fuck we are, we do the Movie Time podcast that uploads on the channel once a week. We love talking about deep dive discussions on movies in general. Like if you're not doing a review, it's usually some movie topic or what have you. So show some love, do the YouTube stuff, like, subscribe, share, talk to your friends about us, make fun of us. I don't know. Comment in the comment section. Audio formats are found on your podcast platform of choice under the Low Key Geek channel. So it's been 6 years since the last Doctor Strange movie, but it did feel like Doctor Strange has been such a prominent character throughout the MCU because he's popped up in all these other movies, right? Especially during, Infinity War and Endgame. Recently, we saw him in Spider-Man No Way Home. And, it just feels weird that we're now getting a proper quote unquote sequel to his original movie. But oddly enough, and don't worry, there's going to be no spoilers in this particular discussion here. This did not feel like a continuation of a lot of the stuff that happened in the first movie, nor really a true follow-up of everything that transpired in No Way Home. It felt really more like a standalone type of movie, like a story that they just kind of like jumped right into, expecting the audience to be ready and geared up and ready to go forward with it without worrying about all the other stuff that's happened, with the exception of maybe WandaVision, right? Because I feel like WandaVision, this is the first time we're seeing Wanda after the events that happened there. As for the movie as a whole, I think if you are a huge Sam Raimi fan, which I kind of am, this movie is going to be all for you because this had his signature written all over it, which is interesting because a lot of people always wonder, well, you have these directors that sign up to do Marvel movies. Are they allowed to, their voice? Are they allowed to do their thing? You could really see that if you follow Raimi's career, they allowed him to do his thing here for sure. I mean, everything from the Dutch angles, and for those of you who don't know what Dutch angles are, that's like the angled camera view, and a lot of like the quick zooming or the slow zooming, and or the switching of angles as it's like going in and out of view and all that stuff like that. You have the quick transitions, like when they hear a sound, boom, door closes, boom, door closes, like, or something like that. Weird transitions that have floating heads in front of your face, whether they're telling a story and you see like these floating head montages of things happening in the background, or just a quick transition of someone walking into focus as the previous scene like fades into the background and all that. So if you're a huge fan of all the Raimi Spider-Man movies, if you are a fan of Evil Dead or Army of Darkness, you're going to catch a lot of familiar camera work, a lot of familiar type of spice and flavor that you've seen in those movies in this movie. Does it make it a good experience or a bad experience? Well, it depends on the person, really. But I'm curious, Blake, with that being said, I'd love to hear your initial thoughts, what you liked, what you didn't like, what have you.
Yeah, for sure. So you brought up a couple things. One, when you said it was the first Doctor Strange sequel. I was like, yeah, that's right. That surprised me because we have some folks in Marvel who have a few movies and have for a while. He's been so prominent lately. Um, my question actually, while I was watching the movie, was, does he take the mantle from Iron Man? I think there was obviously with Spider-Man's box office pull. There's that, but Doctor Strange, Spider-Man, and Iron Man being on the spaceship together, um, that feels like we could kind of have a both almost. In one of the multiverses, there's talk of him being the mightiest hero. So I was wondering about that, where this movie seems to be setting that possibility up. I'm not saying that he is the number one dude moving forward, but maybe. And then the other thing you mentioned about this being a one-off movie, it definitely is. And I was also thinking about a lot of recent Marvel movies since Endgame have felt that way. Eternals
Yeah.
felt that way for sure. That was in a vacuum. Black Widow was in a vacuum, kind of just because they made it too late,
Right.
and it wasn't fitting into the plots before. But it also, that same feeling I get from like a TV show where 2 or 3 episodes in, it's like, okay, where are we going with this? What's the thing? And then maybe they are building into another massive, all these movies will connect someday. But right now, this one is for sure. It's a one-off that just kind of launches off of WandaVision. Um, I'm gonna go ahead. This was not my favorite Marvel movie. This was maybe a third tier Marvel movie to me. I'm coming at this, if somebody's a super comic book fan or just absolutely adores all of these movies, that's not how I'm coming into this. And that person, comment below. We can definitely agree that pizza rolls are amazing. But when it
Pizza
comes
balls.
to, yeah, pizza balls. Yeah, pizza rolls are amazing. Pizza balls, even better, much more exciting. Um, but in this one, not my cup of tea. It's a fantasy movie. There's a lot more. The first Doctor Strange movie, we're talking about a doctor who believes in science and is cynical. I was like, this is my guy. And then they kind of build up how he gets his powers through science and studying and research, which was kind of cool. This one, that's gone. This one is just full blast. There's a few things that happen. I go, I don't remember him like learning how to do that. What is this based in? And then we also have Black Widow doing a lot of sorcery, witchcraft stuff, and it got much more um, in that vein. I said Black Widow, not Black Widow. Wanda. Um,
Wanda.
that is not my cup of tea to begin with. And then I have seen every Marvel movie. You and I saw Endgame together in theaters, and I had done a marathon before then. I used to be kind of a hater on the Scorsese camp of Marvel movies are ruining great cinema, and that I no longer hold that at all. I would catch every single Marvel movie. I today am caught up with TV shows except Moon Knight is I have to get that off my list. But this one it reminded me like Ant-Man. I really enjoyed the first Ant-Man. I really enjoyed the first Doctor Strange. So it's not necessarily some issue inherent with it. It was this movie in particular. And I'm glad that you're a fan of Sam Raimi. He comes up like with the Coen brothers early in his career. I love them as a cinephile dude. They've never done one wrong note in my mind. That he goes so far in a different direction in his full camp, and I found this movie corny. If we're thinking about it as okay, this is intentionally campy, then I can understand. At least it wasn't on accident. Last thing you want to do is try to be great
Mhm.
and flop. If you're trying to be campy, then that's at least forgivable.
Right.
I just maybe need to like look at the movie differently. I'm excited for you to tell me more about Sam Raimi, especially if we're doing when we do the deep dive episode.
Sure.
Other than that, this is one of those where I was like, I don't know how deeply I am dedicated to the MCU project. Up through Endgame, I was fully in, and when Endgame happens, like that felt like a world-shattering event.
Mhm.
The problem there is that maybe the mystique of the MCU was kind of shattered after that, and they're trying to like put some of these last multiverse pieces back together. So at the end, the question for me is Doctor Strange or How I Learned to Stop and love the multiverse, because we're getting into some really new territory that I am not enjoying nearly as much. I have some beef with other things we could talk about. That there's some acting choices. There was the effects were not as good. I'm excited for you to defend some of that on the Sam Raimi of it all,
Hmm.
but I think I gave it on my letterbox count. I think I gave it like a 3.5. It feels maybe like a 3, but because or worse, but because it's a Marvel movie. I loved WandaVision a lot. I
Yeah.
3.5 right now is my score out of 5.
Okay. To be honest, it's a lot higher than I thought you were going to give it. I thought you were going to go maybe more closer to maybe a 2.5 or 3. Like around that range.
I always skew up because I love movies. I'm like, oh, thank you. You guys made this whole thing, this 2-hour experience for me. I was in the movie
Hmm.
theater. I was in the front row of a Dolby Cinema. I was fully immersed, which I know most people like. That sounds horrible. No, it was amazing. My neck doesn't hurt from that. I don't know why. Um, the fully immersive experience, giant bucket of popcorn. I may or may not have snuck in some Sour French Kids and
Ew.
Diet Coke from the grocery store. Don't tell AMC. Um, my I enjoyed myself at the movie theater tonight, and that'll always bump it up a point. But if we're going just on like compare this to all movies all time, yeah, we're looking at like a 2.5 is just how much I loved it.
Okay.
It
Yeah.
was fun.
Yeah, I will say that too. It was an entertaining movie. It's at times feels like it's all over the place. And I've heard a lot of people say it's crazy, it's nutty, and all that, and they're all accurate. It is, but I think that also goes back to one. Doctor Strange, when you're talking about him as a character by himself, not in a like a quartet or a part of a group or anything like that, the stuff that he deals with is really out there. It's really most times it's very far fetched, right? Very trippy and all that. And we get a lot of those moments here where there's a lot of scenes and things that they go through where you feel like you're on this really crazy acid trip. But you kind of felt the same way in the first movie as well. What you definitely do get more of here, and I think it's because you're primarily dealing with WandaVision and her darker powers as the Scarlet Witch. You're getting a lot of more of the horror elements of it, a lot more of like the that's why I compare it to like Evil Dead at times, but because there are a lot of moments where it felt like I was watching Evil Dead, as far as not so much of the grotesque gore, but things alluding to that, or things that are kind of similar to that. And I think Sam Raimi is kind of the perfect person to direct a movie like this, because you need to be able to have that maniacal, crazy mind to put a lot of that crap in a movie like, something like this. Now, my only fear was that because of his love of camp, and this movie does have a good amount of it in it, I felt like it was going to force a lot of the characters, especially the main characters, to be more campy than they should be. I think at some parts they teetered that line a little bit, because I do feel like this is a different Doctor Strange. I feel like this is not the same Doctor Strange that we were introduced to 6 years ago. It's definitely not the same Doctor Strange that we got in No Way Home, for sure. Like, this is like a kind of like a different take on him in a way. I don't know what that's going to mean leading to the future of Strange and how he's going to interact with everybody. So that's why I'm not surprised to hear your take on it, because I do feel like this is going to be one of those first Marvel movies that may split the Marvel fan base, especially the fan base of the movies directly. Comic book fans, I feel like they're going to get a little bit of good stuff that they're going to love. They're going to get a little bit of stuff that they're going to be like, what? I don't get it. Why are you doing it that way? And then some that will just be like, fuck that shit. That's stupid. Like, I don't understand why you're trying to do that there like that, And I think a lot of that criticism is going to come from those people who loved WandaVision, those who probably never watched a lot of the MCU movies, but they watched WandaVision, fell in love with the character, fell in love with what happened there. And then they're going to come to this movie and be like, wait a minute, what's happening now? And I think it's really going to throw a lot of people off, and that's why for me, even though I did enjoy it and it was entertaining, it's definitely not one of the stronger Marvel films that I've seen, especially when you compare it to Eternals or Shang-Chi. I felt like those were on a whole other level than this was. And I'm not saying it's a terrible movie. It's not. It's just very different. And I think a lot of people who are coming into this with very high expectations or their own expectations of things that they're going to want to see come out in this movie, most of those people are going to get very disappointed very quickly, I think. And you're just going to have to, like, I guess, put faith into them in putting you and allowing you to go on this ride and see how it plays out. And at the end of the day, you like it, cool. You don't like it, oh well, better luck next time, right? At least this is what's going to happen, and then you're going to have to deal with it. But as far as like the acting is concerned, I think Rachel McAdams, I think she did a pretty good job with what she was given. I think, I did like her character from the first movie, and it was kind of nice to see her back. Benedict, still, regardless of not, I felt this was a different Strange movie or what have you, he's still pretty good, and he's
Oscar
just
nominee Benedict Cumberbatch, not a bad actor.
Not a bad actor at all. And I do feel the sense that he does like playing this character. You could kind of feel that way, But I do know you have a little bit of a criticism with one of the newer characters that we were introduced to. And that was now I'm going to butcher this name. Xochitl Gomez.
I was actually going to pull up the Doctor Strange cast to check the timing. But yeah, the actress playing America Chavez.
Yes.
I see. I have the wrong cast. I was like, Tilda Swinton? No, okay. Spoiler alert, Tilda Swinton was in the first one. Yeah, that acting wasn't good, and I think that Sam Raimi didn't do it many favors. I know that I don't know how in an unlimited budget you don't cast someone who's a known quality unless you're going for that, to say we're introducing a new character, you don't want to bring in a name. I did not enjoy the acting, and it also maybe is part of a Sam Raimi problem more than anything, or at least my beef, where the writing isn't very good. It's a campy, and so at the end of the day, it kind of comes across like it's got that like Lifetime TV movie aspect to it, where it's just like the craft isn't there the way I want it to be, and I'm not trying to be a snob. Like, Marvel movies have a lot of great actors joining the Marvel universe, and in this case, that choice didn't make sense to me. The other thought I have, because I know we're going to do more deep dive stuff afterward in our longer episode, but I think what you're talking about, this movie is divisive. I don't think this is the right movie to do at this exact moment in the MCU. I know some people watched WandaVision and that was kind of their, okay, I like it. I have Disney Plus. I like that show a lot. And then if they went from there to, I always call it Captain America Winter Soldier. The other one.
No, you're right.
There was the next TV show after WandaVision. The Winter Soldier. Yeah, was it actually that?
It's Captain America and Winter Soldier. Yeah.
There's also stuff. Anyway, that show, and then in my opinion, Hawkeye. This one had more tonally in common with Hawkeye on the like the young actress and the older guy who's kind of curmudgeonly or whatever. That, and then just this one felt it had some like TV show quality to it, but maybe that's the Sam Raimi camp. I think that if someone loved WandaVision, they want to know how does that end up, they should definitely watch this movie for sure.
Sure.
If someone isn't all in on MCU, which I'm going to keep going to MCU movies, I'm sure of it. If they're not all in on it, then I'm not sure that this movie might be one where they say, okay, I'm no longer trusting this franchise. Just had Spider-Man. And if my question earlier was who takes the reins from Iron Man, is it Spider-Man or Doctor Strange? I am confident this one will not perform as well at the box office. There's absolutely no way. And the word of mouth here, there's no way. Unless you know something in box office, because I know that's more your thing than mine. But I have a feeling that this will sell a lot of tickets, of course. It'll sell a lot more popcorn. I think this was a wrong step for the MCU, and I don't trust them as much as I did. I think they giving Sam Raimi free reign, because everything up till now had a pretty similar tone all throughout, and it was, you'd have different directors and they would do different things, but it was a high enough quality between some TV shows and this movie. I'm not trusting that it will be an actually high quality movie every time. Somebody likes, they're an MCU devotee. They love Harry Potter crap, which isn't my thing. No hate, but it's terrible. If someone's into witchcraft and sorcery and that, like, definitely go see this. My recommendation at the end is, unless you're one of those groups, this might actually be a disappointment. So, worst case, you lower your expectations and then you go see and maybe you're pleasantly surprised. But I went into it with too high of expectations for sure. With what I've loved about the MCU, this didn't deliver.
Sure. Yeah, and I'm my fear is that I think a lot of people may fall into the same boat as you, because riding off of the coattails of No Way Home, I think that's what's garnered all of that initial curiosity for this movie, because what they saw, how he interacted with Spider-Man, what happened in Spider-Man because of what he did or didn't do, and how he tried to correct it, blah blah blah, this and that. I think initially the box office will reflect a lot of the curiosity of everyone who loved No Way Home and wants to see how that's going to continue. But that's why I'm saying now, again, with no spoilers, this is not a direct continuation of what happened in No Way Home. This is a completely different storyline. Yes, they use some elements, and maybe there was like one line that kind of threw back to the events that happened there, but that's pretty much it. And I think that when the word of mouth starts spreading around, then a lot of people who were probably on the fence may be like, well, maybe I'll watch it later or something like that. So I do feel like the initial box office, at least for the first week, is going to be phenomenal. But then you will start seeing probably drop off week after week as word of mouth goes out there. And more people start doing their reviews and criticizing the movie and all that stuff like that. So just my closing thoughts on it all for now. I do feel like it's an interesting time for the MCU because we really don't know where they're going. You know, I felt like when the very first Iron Man came out in 2008, they had a thorough line, right? They had a plot that we as an audience kind of were able to follow because every movie kind of unraveled each of that storyline, right? It's like, okay, we're gearing up towards this, we're gearing up towards this, we're gearing up towards this. And it was a big Thanos showdown, right? And then once that happened, we're like, cool, now it's going to happen. Now, I'm not saying they don't have a plan, because I know they do. Just this past week, they had a off-site conference to plan out the next 15 years of MCU. So they have a plan, but I feel like they are reaching in so many different pockets that it's hard for us to really know, especially with what we've been getting lately, what that big event is going to be, right? Maybe they're working on, well, this kind of storyline is going to be for the Disney Plus side of things, and then this storyline is going to be for the movie side of things, and and all that stuff like that. Right now, anything goes. That's what it feels like. And if anything, this movie shows you that anything goes, and I think that's what's going to throw a lot of people off. But if anything, I feel like the main core is definitely they're driving home more of the younger generation, more of the younger characters, right? We have Haley Stansfield from the Hawkeye series. She's a young a potential Avenger or something like that. You have America Chavez in this one. And they've introduced slowly like other side characters that will eventually probably be the bigger side of the team, while you have maybe a Doctor Strange who's mentoring them or whatever the case is, right? So they definitely are leaning towards more of that, and this one is definitely a good indication of it. And as far as the acting, just to close off on that, it definitely is, I think, a mix of Sam Raimi and I hate to say this, I feel like kind of more catering to the CW audience, where it's, the younger, actresses and younger generation, they act in a certain way where maybe as a cinephile we'll be like, well, that's crappy acting. But it resonates with a younger crowd, right? And that's just how movies work. That's just how they do it, right? They know the landscape, they read it, and they provide what they know is going to hit, right? Now, I didn't think her acting was that terrible, but I can see how someone like yourself would find it to be pretty awful, you know. But she did what she had to do. She was given the script she was given and the direction and all that, and you know, it is what it is, right? So that's why it's interesting to hear what everyone is going to think about this movie. For me, my final rating, this is going to be a lower rated movie for me in the Marvel universe. I probably will give it a 3.5, which is pretty low for me, because usually if I like a Marvel film, it's a 4. If I really, really like it, it's like you're getting closer to 5 territory, right? This is definitely like a 3.5. I may even go lower to 3, depending on the type of week. But you know, at the end of the day, it really doesn't matter what we think. We really want to know what all of you think. You know, let us know your thoughts about the movie when you watch it in the comments. If you disagree with anything we've said, please let us know. Let's have a conversation. Let's discuss it. You know, that's what we're here for. That's what we love to do. And if you want to hear a full-on discussion with Blake and myself about the surprises in the movies, you know, really the things that we like, or really the things that we really didn't hate, we really didn't like at all, click on the video that you see on screen right now, and that will lead you to the full-on discussion for this movie. We'll talk about the ending, you know, post-credit scenes, all that kind of stuff. What does it all mean? I'm sure Blake has a lot of questions, but click on that video right now and we'll see you there.